So you've rewritten your product title, started a blog and installed every SEO app out there, but your Shopify store still gets barely any commercial traffic that turns into sales. Now the reason for that is probably because you've never turned SEO into a repeatable system. So you just end up doing whatever new tactic you see on LinkedIn. To solve this, I'm going to give you the exact 3 systems I use to consistently get the right pages visible in organic search. We've used these to help dozens of e-commerce brands turn organic into a reliable channel for product purchases. And by the end of this video, you know exactly which pages to focus on, how to get them ranking, and how to turn that traffic into repeatable revenue. So let's dive in. System 1, the filter. The first system is what I call the filter, and it's how you figure out which pages are actually going to make you money. A typical Shopify store has hundreds and hundreds of pages, but only a small number of them ever bring in sales. So the filter is a quick test you run each page through in order to find that small number. The test is really just one question. Is this a page people land on when they're ready to buy or just when they're researching? So those are the pages you focus your time on, and you can leave the rest alone. The filter also tells you which pages shouldn't exist at all, and the easiest way to show you is with a brand that we've actually worked with. The Shopify brand is called the Happy Hay Company, and they sell feeding hay for small pets and animals. Their problem was that they had pages trying to rank for all sorts of animals, but a lot of those were never going to bring in any sales for their actual products. So the filter we built them was one simple question: is hay a main food source for this animal? If it was, like with rabbits, guinea pigs, and chinchillas, we built that page out properly. And if it wasn't, like with goats or sheep, we left it alone. That one question instantly showed them where to focus their attention instead of spreading their effort across dozens of pages that were never going to sell anything. And real quick, if at any point in this video you decide you'd rather just have your SEO handled for you, I'll leave a link at the top of the description where you can book a free intro call with us. We'll take a look at your store and show you exactly what we do for you specifically to start bringing in more traffic and sales. Now back to the video. System 2, the page checklist. So once you've used the filter to find the pages that actually make you money, the next system is what you actually do to each one. The page checklist is just a few steps that get a page ranking. You build it once, then run every important page through those same steps, so each page gets exactly what it needs. Now the first thing you'd want to optimize for is of course the clickable title in Google search results, which is the meta title. So if I do a search for fireplace brick slips, so our client does appear in first position, and you see they've got this nice clickable title that appears in Google, as well as other various enhanced features or rich snippets rather. So you got the store rating there, delivery, returns, etc. So it's really optimized, but the title is the main thing you want to go for because this is the first thing that search engines will potentially look at. So fireplace brick slips is what we've optimized for in terms of that. And also we've got an initial description there, which is typically taken from the meta description, or sometimes Google may take this from any part of the page, typically the first few lines of copy. So making sure that's optimized would be a good place to start. Now the next thing for e-com brands is you want to go straight into the products as soon as possible. So ideally you'd want to have these above the fold if it's a collection page. So this is typically what we see working really well for conversions. So you've got the associated products available, and you know, if people want to filter by color, they can. That's an option as well. And then it goes into a bit more description on the page itself. So typically if somebody gets to this point of the page, you'd want to give them additional information that will make their purchasing journey a bit smoother. So this could be examples, this could be a testimonial, this could be some kind of social proof that would help them. So in this case, we are giving them before and after pictures, just a little slideshow of what their fireplace could look like after installing this particular product. And then we've also gone through some more pre-made panels available, etc. So just giving them more options essentially. So, you know, if these initial options weren't the right one for them for this particular query, we've given them a multitude of several different options available. And then the next section is really about frequently asked questions. This gets skipped a lot, I feel, in e-commerce because people feel like you know, it's an afterthought. It's like, you know, no one really thinks about the typical questions that customers can be asking. A good source of knowledge are your actual customers. So people on the phone speaking to your customers every day, ask them, you know, what are the typical questions, what are the typical barriers for somebody to make a purchase? You know, if they've not made a purchase on the website, why are they giving us a phone call? You know, it's an e-com site. Ideally, you'd want people to be purchasing straight away. So you'd want to find out the details of the questions that customers are asking and literally answer these on the page. So for example, you know, are they suitable for a log burner? This could be a typical question that a customer could have. What brick slips are best for my fireplace, different ways to tell a fireplace. So you've got really visual examples of how the product could help this particular customer who's searching for fireplace brick slips, you know. So we've matched the intent of the search with obviously the meta title, the best description for that particular product. You want it broad enough to attract users coming to the page, but you also want it to be specific enough to actually match the intent, the purchasing intent behind that particular user query. So fireplace brick slips is much better than just brick slips in general, because obviously it's not attuned to the fireplace, whereas brick slips would be better positioned as the main category term on the homepage. So you'd want the homepage going for that, and that's a whole different strategy. The last thing on the checklist is your internal links, which are just the links from one of your pages to another. Your homepage should link to your main category pages, and each category page should link to the product pages under it. Again, going back to this client example, I really love their homepage because it does a lot of things really well. So you've got internal links across the navigation, so a nice deep navigation that goes through specific product types. In the previous example, I mentioned fireplace brick slips. You also have bathroom, kitchen, etc., and they're labeled aligned with the search query in mind. So we're targeting fireplace brick slips, so we've actually named the link to that in the navigation, and that obviously relates to the page itself. And we've got these bucketed in all of these, I'll say, categories and subcategories. So you've got interior brick slips, and all of these are part of the interior categorization, and you got external, and then you've also got some other pages there. And also on the page itself, so the home page, remember you want these deep links from the home page because this is your main discovery layer for your brand. You know, branded search queries, people searching for the main category term brick slips as a whole, they'll likely come onto this page first. So again, like I said, you want your products front and center as soon as possible so people know exactly what you sell. So you've got those natural internal links, of course, to your product specific pages, which is going to really help Google understand, or customers understand, you know, what you sell. And also you want any trust signals. So Trustpilot, you know, a lot of brands might have it at the top there, but we've decided to have it kind of in the middle. You've also got a brick slip visualizer, which is really cool. It just helps people, you know, try and visualize what the product could actually look like within their home, or maybe you might be a professional and you might be working on a project and you want the customer to see what the potential product could look like. So that is really cool for people to use. And this obviously ties in, maybe not to internal links specifically, but it ties into, I think, signposting people to helpful content. So helpful content isn't just blog content, category pages, you know, the standard e-com playbook. Is also actually pointing people to helpful tools. So this could be calculators, it could be samples, it could be anything that's designed to help that person along their journey. So for this particular purchasing decision, it is so considered because, as you can imagine, if you're going to buy something that's going to transform your home, you're going to spend a lot of time researching on Pinterest, etc. And the website is a key part of their journey, so you'd want it to be aligned with whatever journey that customer might be on. So this is very considered. So you'd want a lot of visual features. So think about what kind of product you're actually selling. So we'd have internal links to those kind of tools. And then also you'd want internal links to the category pages themselves, you know, the pages that are actually going to make you money. So these are the main categories that they sell. So, you know, contemporary, traditional, reclaim, these are the things that people are typically looking after, or I'll say these are the typical kind of products that people are looking for when they're looking for brick slips. You know, this style versus that style versus that style. It's usually these three particular styles that people would like. And then you got some nice social proof or authority signals, you know, where they've been featured. You don't need to link to those unless you've got a particular page that talks about your press coverage. Then maybe you might want to link to that. You know, some nice Instagram links. I mean, those are external links, but you got some really deep links to installation guidance pages. So going back to helpful content, you know, helpful content, Google released some guidelines, I think back in 2022, where it talked about what helpful content is. So it is pretty much that playbook. So if you look at, I'm just going to do a Google search for that actually. If you look for helpful content, guidelines, Google, I've misspelled guidelines, but it's all good. Helpful content guidelines, people first content. This pretty much explains exactly what you need to do. So evaluate your own content against these questions can help you gauge if the content you're making is helpful and reliable. So it goes through things like, does the content provide original information, research or analysis? I think we tick those boxes. Does the content provide a substantial, complete or comprehensive description of the topic? So with e-com, you want to be as comprehensive as possible around the product. So that's why we've got installation, how to install these brick slips. That's why we've got a visualizer so people can actually see what the product's going to look like. This is why we have such visual imagery for the products. This is why we've got option for people to look at the Instagram feed to see what the product actually looks like in actual customers' homes. This is all unique, useful, helpful, reliable content. Does the main heading or page title provide a descriptive, helpful summary of the content? We talked about that in the previous section. Does the main heading or page avoid exaggeration or being shocking in nature? Of course, you just want to describe what the product is, literally say what it is on the tin. You don't want to use the brand-led language that may sound really clever in a boardroom, but when somebody's searching for that product, is it actually the thing? Is it what they're expecting to see on the page? You need to think about that. Is this the sort of page you'd want to bookmark and share with a friend? I mean, for sure, if I was researching brick slips and I came across this website, I definitely want to bookmark this because it's got such helpful resources to actually help that customer along their journey. It's even got information around calculating the product. I mentioned calculators before. So all these tools are very cleverly embedded within the whole customer journey. And that's pretty much what you're trying to do. Again, it goes through, does the content have any spelling or stylistic issues? Obviously, yeah, make sure you check for errors, make sure you check for accessibility. That's obviously really important. Expertise questions. Does the content present information in a way that makes you want to trust it, such as clear sourcing, evidence of expertise? I mean, this could probably relate to products that are medical in nature, products that would demand more scrutiny. You'd probably want to have more expertise. Typical journey would be another brand that we work with where they sell living aids to the elderly and those with disabilities. As you can imagine, this is leaning on the side of a medical product, something that would help people with health. So anything that is considered your money or your life, that is a specific category for Google, and you'd want to ensure that you've got more expertise signals around that. So what we've done is, of course, embedded their product information as well as created helpful guides that are approved by occupational therapists. We've got these product guides and they are reviewed by these occupational therapists that recommend various products. 10 years of experience as an occupational therapist working in both the NHS and private sector. Okay, if that doesn't scream authority, I don't know what does. So provide a great page experience. All these things is literally Google telling you exactly what to do. I think this is something that's slept on a lot in SEO. I mean, they released this a few years ago, but it still holds weight today, and they've recently updated it in December 2025. So we're in 2026 now. This is pretty recent. So they keep updating this because, I mean, this is literally telling you how to rank on Google, literally. How Google search views AI generated content. I recommend you read that as well because it obviously tells you what Google is rewarding and what Google is punishing. So they released the June 2026 spam update recently in 2026. So they are continuously updating the algorithm and fighting against this AI generated content. So definitely read that if you are thinking of leveraging AI for your content strategy. So yeah, I've touched a lot of things, but it comes down to the point of it's not just internal linking. I think internal linking is something that I've said many times, and it sounds basic, but honestly, read this guidance and think about all the useful content that you can internally link to when it comes to your customer journey. And there's so many ideas that you can come up with that could be a bit more creative. And it's not just, hey, let's link the home page to the category page and let's link the category page to the product page. Yeah, that's the basics. At least get the basics right. But when it comes to the advanced levels of ensuring that you're competitive in search and you want to be number one for certain things, you kind of need to take it to the next level, which is creating helpful content that's useful for your customers and that actually helps them on their purchasing journey. Because if you write content that's good for Google, it's more likely going to be good for the customer because Google's chasing customers, and you want to be chasing your customers as well. And you never fall foul of all these algorithm updates. So that's a bit on that. System 3, the SEO health check. Once your important pages are good to go, you might think that the work is done, but on Shopify, there's pretty much always more to do. So that's what this last system is for. It's called the SEO health check. And all that it is a quick pass through your store that I do about once a month. You need it because every time you add or remove a product, small things break without you knowing. And we recently noticed this with the most recent Google algorithm core update back in March 2026. If you never check, they add up until your rankings start to drop. So the first thing the health check looks for is 2 of your own pages competing for the same search, which is called keyword cannibalization. This happens a lot on Shopify because every new product and collection page you add is another page that can end up competing with the one you already have. And when 2 of your pages compete for the same search, Google often ranks neither of them. So instead of getting that traffic, you miss out on it completely. So I'm quickly gonna run through an example of what cannibalization could look like. So let's say you're the Happy A company and guinea pig hay is what they provide. So you can see them appearing pretty high up. It's a very competitive niche, you'd be surprised to know, but they're pretty much appearing higher up. The issue that they had was that they had this FAQ content that was asking frequently asked questions around guinea pigs separate to the actual collection page. So how we solved that cannibalization issue was we obviously combined those 2 separate pieces of content. You think that you typically want to separate your informational content compared to commercial content, but that's often not the case when it comes to e-commerce. Sometimes the best pages are actually a combination of both. So for guinea pig hay, of course, there are numerous number of different types of questions that potential customers could want to ask and want to get answers for. So we've dedicated a section on the particular collection page to answer those questions. So just a simple FAQ section. Before, they had this as a completely separate page. What that does, it splits the authority for your product queries into these 2 separate destinations, even though you might think that Google would reward the content because it's on a separate page. Anyway, to cut a long story short, pretty much is that I think back in the old school days, you'd create pages and pages and pages of content. But what we've noticed with all the recent core algorithm updates is that Google is rewarding efficiency. So if your site is efficiently answering users' questions on a single page, serving multiple types of intent, as long as it's helping the user, I think that's a much better structure to go towards. So, don't try and have multiple pages around guinea pig hay because you think it's the thing to do, unless it's very specific, unless it's like a calculator. So we create a calculator that's a different type of query, that's a different type of intent that's serving. Anything that's commercial intent aligned, then you'd want to have it on the core collection page. And that's pretty much the journey that I'd want to have. Another example of this here is, let's say we've got this competitive brand, the Hay Experts. They've created a guide around guinea pigs. I mean, this is somewhat useful. However, they don't actually appear for I'll say the commercial page doesn't appear on page 1, and yet they've got the guide appearing on page 1. So they've put in a lot of effort for this guide. But let's say I go onto the guide, I review the content, and there's no clear links, no clear signposting to products. Guess what? I'm not actually going to purchase a product from here. I might click back and then maybe go onto these pages that actually offer products straight away. They've got the store ratings, free delivery, returns, etc. The typical things that you'd see on collection pages because they've got the structured data to support that. On a blog page, you're not going to get that same type of information. You're going to get the date, etc. and those kind of rich snippets in terms of the content. So again, be very, I think, specific around the type of content and be mindful of your content strategy. Again, video content is another thing. Maybe we should create a video and embed that on the collection page. Again, it's consolidating different types of intent, different types of content that may be more informational, but making sure that content helps the commercial page appear for more broader queries and higher up the page. So that's the strategy that I'd go for, rather than trying to have all this content that's going to cannibalize your efforts, and you may be serving people who are actually higher up in terms of visibility. These guys here, I mean, it's great content. It's wonderful that they've created this beautiful content, but again, have they really thought about the user journey, and have they thought about the commercial aspect of the content? We do have long form content. It's not to say that we don't have it. It just has a different type of intent. So we actually do have, if we go on here, we have signposts to, again, like I said, these were separate pages before, but they actually go to the collection pages. So we've actually got here pet care guides, and this is very different type of content. So what do gerbils eat? So I mean, this is very informational. There's not really much commercial intent behind that. Whereas we know that these FAQs are very much commercially aligned. Why is hay so important for rabbits? You'd want that on a collection page. What type of hay should rabbits eat? Yes, you can have a long form post on that, but these kind of, short FAQs that are actually helpful for that journey, you'd want them on the collection page. So yeah, so cannibalization is very much a topic that is slightly nuanced, and it may sound straightforward, but sometimes it's very easy to cannibalize yourself. And with all the Google algorithm updates that we've seen this year, Google is certainly clamping down on pages that just aren't worth indexing. So indexing isn't something that's just going to happen automatically. So think about that, especially if you've got a large store with thousands and thousands of products. The second thing I check for is dead links, which show up every time you discontinue a product and its page disappears. Anyone who clicks one of those old links hits a page not found error, which isn't a good experience for customers. And Google runs into those same dead links too, which tells it you're not keeping your site up to date. So whenever you remove a product, make sure to send that old link to the closest page that still exists, like the category that product used to be in. Now, the last thing is checking that your most important pages are still ranking where they were, because your competitors are updating their pages too. A page that ranked well 6 months ago can start dropping if you just leave it alone. So the health check is when you go back in, update it, and get it ranking again. This is also when I make sure new reviews and mentions are still coming in, because Google and AI tools see all those mentions as proof that you're a legit established business, which makes them more likely to recommend you. And this is exactly what we set up for the client I mentioned earlier, the Happy Hay company. The filter, the page checklist, a regular health check are a big part of how they've recovered over 300 lost keywords and grew their organic revenue by 231%. And even better, once it was all running, the owner could take SEO back in-house and run it himself instead of relying on us forever. If you made it to the end of this video and you'd rather just have all of this handled for you, along with everything else like your technical SEO, content, and site migrations, you can click the first link in the description to book a free call with us. We'll show you where your store is losing traffic right now and exactly which systems to set up first. And because we only take on a small number of e-commerce and B2B brands at a time, you'll be working directly with the specialist on your account rather than going through an account manager in the middle. So again, you can book that free intro call by clicking the first link in the description. And if you want to learn how Claude is changing e-commerce SEO, then check out this video next.